Make me some now, please. I'm super hungry for cinnamon buns.
Previously on Spawn Adventures, we packed up the last of our things and jumped the puddle to Surrey. Introduced you to the IBA and our friends at Farkle Garage, and took on the first early morning kilometers to Kamloops.
Vancouver Island's weather can vary pretty drastically. For example, the Victoria area only gets a fraction of rainfall that Tofino will see in a year.
This is real good for local riding, and while the weather can change every 10 minutes, most days it's pretty mild down here, all year round.
In Kamloops and interior areas of BC, the weather is a lot different. They have typically hot summers and relatively cold winters, and way less rain than Victoria. This can create a real dry environment and a breeding ground for forest fires. Continuing our journey north, we have left the dust of Kamloops in our dust, and we are making great time for our next gas stop in Valemount. This is a small town at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, on the east side of BC. We need to quickly pass through it and loop northwest to Prince George.
At this point of the ride, we expected to be really feeling the heat of the morning sun. Turns out the smoke from the fires burning in BC's interior is everywhere.
This would normally be a blue sky morning, but the smoke is so severe, the sun is just a faint glow in the distance. On the upside, we're not roasting in our suits this morning.
But there was a huge downside, and later we found out the fire was a devastating problem for many of the folks in BC.
At one point, there was 1.2 million hectares burning. That's massive. It was the worst fire season since 1958. We are almost at our next gas stop and a much needed break. Right now it's time for fuel stop number 3.
Hey dude.
Hi.
So we're in Valemount?
Valemount.
How you feeling?
Good. Awesome, actually.
You're getting tired though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, he's gonna move ahead now. At this gas station, we actually met several riders that were wearing no more than t-shirts and jeans. These were older guys, and it is important to respect the fact that this is their own decision to make. Decisions on personal safety and risk is often a matter of opinion and experience. Statistics say one thing, but a person must be able to judge that for themselves, and that's an important freedom to have. Many people may say this ride with Aaron is too dangerous. But that again depends on the riders. And for some people, just getting behind the wheel to go to the grocery store is more dangerous than this ride. At this point, we've become very settled into our ride and easily pass kilometer after kilometer.
Break time. I knew it was coming at some point. I found a spot to take a quick nap.
It's important to note that a kid needs some significant riding experience before attempting a ride like this. If he hadn't shown such reliability in the over 20,000 kilometers he's ridden with me in the past, we would never have tried to pull off a ride like this in the first place. You see, riding with Aaron started over 2 years ago. Aaron was 8 years old. I discovered that for a kid to legally ride on a bike, he only needed to be able to touch the rear foot pegs. Hot damn, get this kid a helmet. So we started to ride quite a bit locally, but wanted more. So I asked him, "Want to do a big ride? Where should we start?" He says, "Across Canada." I'm thinking, whoa buddy, let's start a little smaller. How about the island? Very bottom to the very top. And that was it. We started planning our trip right away, and before you knew it, my F800 Sport Tour was packed up with as much as we could fit on it, ready for a week of island exploration, ending at Cape Scott.
I didn't do it.
Aaron was pretty excited to finally start this
what's
trip.
What's your name?
Aaron.
And how old are you, Aaron?
9.
9 years old.
And we're gonna be late because we're meeting people at a coffee shop who are gonna say goodbye to us. So we gotta go. So let's get on helmets.
Yep.
Come on, time to go. Bye-bye.
Hello. Clara.
We headed down to Oak Bay Beach, what we considered the bottom.
This is about as far south as I think we're gonna go.
And headed out. This was our first real taste of freedom on the bike. We had just about a week and a general direction. The rest we could just make up along the way. In no time, we made it to Nanaimo, and the first thing I did on a trip without Mom is buy the kid a knife, of course. Helmet music is known to cause regular roadside breakdancing. We stopped by an old friend's house for a quick visit, and he showed us a motor bigger than Aaron and a few other cool car restorations. Shortly after, we took our first rip down some gravel roads together. The road was freshly graded, so it wasn't bad, but we discovered that the ridges of loose gravel left from the grading machine were no fun. We got to Horn Lake and made our first bike camp ever. We took a chilly dip and hung out by the stream. We heard that there was parasites in the lake, swimmer's itch, so we stayed by the stream instead.
There's a melon on the table with a knife.
This is the kitchen.
Our big dinner was an excellent stew, I made from scratch.
Wait.
Hung out and cleaned up.
Yes, it's not very clean there. Yuck. Try again. We're gonna go to the caves.
Just before dark, we decided to take a quick rip up to the caves. Some of the caves are still open to explore after park hours.
Yeah, it's Horn Lake. There's caves here, and we're going there. And they're down this direction.
The Horn Lake Caves have been a known stop for travelers for many years since their discovery back in 1912. It was actually in 1945 when their popularity grew, and it was discovered that the natural formations were being destroyed by tourists. It took over 25 years before the area was finally protected by the government, and the Horn Lake Caves Provincial Park was established. This is why many of the caves are gated off and can only be accessed during park hours or with a guided tour.
What do you see, Aaron?
We thought it'd be fun to check a couple out anyway.
And chilliness and caveness.
You wouldn't believe how much colder it is just past the entrance of the caves. And they're real slippery, and the light sparkles from the water droplets hanging from the ceiling.
Wow, this is creepy. And then they gated this section off.
We'll have to come back and check out the caves way more next time. The next morning, we packed up quick and hit the highway. We were trying to keep our kilometers relatively short, about 300 a day. We arrived at a BC hydro dam and discovered they had campsites at the lower lake section. Set up camp real quick and caught a stupid looking animal in our snare trap.
They caught a human.
In hindsight, I wish we had planned more time there. We hadn't even scratched the surface of how awesome that area of the island is, and we are definitely heading back there soon. The next day we headed out and continued up island. Made a couple important stops.
I'm super hungry for cinnamon buns.
We drove
10 of them? That's one.
This thing was massive and just came out of the oven.
Man. That's the size of the cinnamon bun.
A little further up the highway and we found a campsite. Not the kind of place I would normally search out on a trip like this, but it was nice. Fairly private campsite with a nice view. And and most importantly, a playground for Aaron. He needed more kids to play with than just me. The day led into another nice night. The next morning, we made it to Port Hardy, and this is the part we had really been looking forward to. To get to Cape Scott, we needed to ride down about 70 kilometers of gravel road. We had a lot of people telling us that we wouldn't be able to make it on a bike like ours.
This is where it begins. We don't really know what's going to happen, and I'm a little nervous. To tell you the truth, we're just going to take it easy and hope that we make it through okay.
It will, however, take a lot of skill to dodge the rough sections of the soft gravel. I'd planned to take it easy and keep the cargo safe. It was honestly no real problem, and I really like burning around in the dirt. I just have the wrong bike for it. Anyhow, we're all good, just hot. So I showed Aaron that soaking our shirts in the lake and then putting our riding jackets back on is the simplest way to cool back down. Such an easy way to cool off and still wear your gear. We passed through the tiny town of Holberg. Not a whole lot here, but some small homes, a store, and a pub.
Who's over there? Oh! Aaron. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, all.
Hey. This is Holberg, and we're just awesome. Aaron just saw his first bear along the side of the road.
But the place had a history of once being the world's largest floating town. Kinda neat, really. Something I think we'll need to look into next time we visit the area. After a wrong turn and a blocked trail, we'd finally made it to the end of the road. We spoke with the good guy who runs the campsite up there. We found out you can't drive to the top of Cape Scott. We had soon come to the realization that the top of Cape Scott was impossible for us to reach on this trip. It was a day-and-a-half hike north, and we were not prepared to handle a hike of that size. The good thing was that the relatively short hike to the San Joe Bay from the campsite was just right. And when we reached the end of the trail, it was in no way disappointing. This place was vast and untouched. It was incredible to find such a beautiful place so deserted. It felt as if it was some scene from a pirate film, and at any minute a huge sailed ship would come floating into the bay. This first trip left us wanting more, much more, and is still an unfinished mission for us. With more time, better planning, and better camera equipment, we're going to revisit this trip with deeper exploration and finally complete our goal of reaching the top of the island.
It was only 15 minutes, but that was exactly what I needed. It was time to get up and get moving, and we were just outside Prince George and another fill-up. We've eaten up over 600 kilometers since Kamloops, and now have 700 to go. Next stop, Smithers.
Next time on Spawn Adventures, we continue racking up kilometers across BC and tell the tale of a broken beamer and the challenges we faced while attempting to conquer our riding goals, and why it's not always best to buy local.